Okay, so while we wait for some people, I actually want to start, if you don't mind. I wanted to start by asking you, since your LLC is called Becoming Limitless, how did you become limitless?
Uh, well, first of all, thank you so much for asking me to be
Absolutely.
here. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. So, Become Limitless is the name of my business. It is it is and really it's the way I believe in humans. I've been through a lot. Lots of people have been through a lot. The people you work with have been through um, been through heartbreak and through catastrophe and all kinds of stuff. And what I realized is that these are all circumstances, right? And we are not our circumstances. Uh, and through through mindset, through the belief that we can be anything that we want, that our purpose here is divine. Our purpose, and because our purpose is divine, that we can't really be shaken off of it if we don't want to be. And so
Mm,
becoming limitless becoming limitless is really just about stripping away my personal limitations about what I'm capable of, which is really about stripping away narrative, stripping away story, stripping away negative self-talk, stripping away those pieces of me that get in the way of my own divine purpose.
mm, mm. So I didn't introduce you because I feel like I would like for you to introduce yourself, and I want to welcome all those that are here watching. Thank you so much for being here. Please drop a comment to let us know if you have any questions for Dave, if you already know him. Hi, Tara. I would like for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who is this Dave that you built. Who are
Uh,
you?
sure. So my name is Dave Gieselman. I am a leadership and mindset coach, uh, and I work with uh, professionals, entrepreneurs. I work with creatives on on using very old tradition, ancient wisdom tradition tools along with modern neuroscience to really help people break through difficult moments in their life. Life is a series of what we call inflection points, right? These points where we get stopped, where we get stuck, and some of us move through them, and some of us don't. And so through my life, I have been a homeless drug addict, an alcoholic. I am a retired professional chef. I have been a combat sports athlete. I have been an endurance sports athlete. I am a father. I've been married. I've been through the loss of dear friends and family members. And I found my purpose in serving others. I am what is called a prime nurturer. For years and years and years, I feed things. That's what I do, right? And for years and years, I fed people. I fed people with food, and now I feed people in other ways. But I am a nurturer, and what I do is I build people.
Hmm. There is something that I heard from an interview that I watched of you the other day, where you said that when you were basically going through rehabilitation, they told you to, as soon as you were out, to
Mm-hmm.
go and take people out of their own holes and help them. And I feel like that's not easy to do when you're just out yourself. So I would like to ask you, how were you able to do that? How were you able to help others when you were getting out of so many years of addiction and everything, all the consequences that that brought in your life?
For sure. So healers, very much like mediums, right? In much in the same way, healers are healers, um, because it is my path to heal myself, right? And the moment the moment, and what I said was that in my journey in sobriety, one of the things that I was told was that, the moment you're out of the hole, the moment, you're out, your responsibility is now and to turn around and reach back into the hole and help somebody else out. And in that moment, it feels daunting. It feels overwhelming. It feels like an impossible thing to do. I don't even have my own feet under me quite yet. And how am I supposed to help? And the truth is that as someone who just came from that place, I am closer to those first few steps out than anybody else,
Right.
right? I am closer to, and I have better experience, more recent experience with those first few steps out than anybody. And so even in my first days of convalescence, even in my first days where I was like, my mind was racing, my body was shutting down. I was an emotional wreck, I was a physical wreck, and they told me to help somebody else. Promise the guy who's been sober for 3 days that day six is better than day three, which is what they told me, right? Because the guy with 6 days of sobriety can tell the person with 3 days of sobriety the day six. Look, I can promise you day six is better than day three.
Mm.
Look, I've been sober for almost 24 years, right? If I go back right now and I go, look, bud, I want to tell you, day 3,844 is better than day three. Yeah, I know that. Like, that's not useful information. Day six is better than day three. That is both useful and life saving information, right? From the guy who's just about to give up. And we see this in grief, we see this in recovery, we see this in all sorts of walks of life, in personal development, and it's where I found myself. It's where I found my responsibility to my fellow human beings, was in this idea that the someone once told me, we lift as we climb, right? The most important thing you can do is lift as you climb. So as you climb, lift the person behind you, and their job is to lift as they climb. And my world has expanded from that belief system.
Oh my goodness gracious. Thank you so much, Dave, for being here and for just reminding me and reminding all of us that we don't need to necessarily be, already self-realized to start the work, because otherwise we are never going to start the work. And I love what you said, that you were close to, you could understand
Mm.
where they were at, and that's why you could lend a hand. And also I feel like with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm thinking is, by helping them, you were committing yourself, like you were committing to that path yourself, because you had to be that example. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
100%. And so I now get to have an example in front of me. I get to do my own work, and I get to be an example to someone behind me, right? And impress upon them their responsibility, because and you and I have both experienced this. People are so grateful when we walk people out of the darkness, and I've been walking people out of the darkness and out of the fire for a long, long time. And you have too. You have been walking people out of darkness and out of sadness and out of confusion and out of, like, what happened, what went wrong, right? And you and I have both been walking people out of this, for a long time. And there's absolutely nothing to me that is more important in that journey than it is. I mean, it's my responsibility,
Mm.
right? It's my responsibility. Somebody walked me out, right? Somebody took the time. They gave of themselves, and they walked me out of the darkness, and out of my own personal hell. And so I have a responsibility to those who would follow me.
Mm, right. I just love that. I have so many things that I want to ask you, and I want to welcome those that are here watching. I believe that if you're watching, there is a reason, and I hope that you can share this interview with those that are around you, because there is going to be so many precious reminders here. Um, Let me see where to go. I have a few things in my mind, but first I want to talk about I'm gonna go, with all the things that pop in my mind. There is
Mm-hmm.
something that you told me once in a phone call that we had, which is basically, I'm gonna share it here. You said that you didn't imagine that the life that you're having now was actually possible. So I want to ask you, when were the moments, maybe there were more than one, where you actually started like imagine and yeah, imagine this life that you're now having, maybe like writing it down or making a vision board, or just like thinking about it. Is the question clear?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll take it take it a couple steps back. So when I was coming out of my own darkness, people, you know, I I didn't know how to to look really far down my own road, right? And I couldn't imagine, I would never have imagined this life, right? And so I invite the people watching this to look, look down, look at their own life. And 10 years ago, if somebody had told you, if somebody asked you, what do you think your life is going to look like in 10 years? Would you have told them this? Is this the life that you would have said? We can't. Anything that we can imagine basically comes from our past, right? We're remembering. This is not new information. Like anything you're imagining comes from your past, right? It's the new stuff, and yes, it is great to set goals. It is great to visualize. It is great to do that. But anything you can visualize, anything you can see, that's from your past, right? That's something that's already here. Your future, you can't imagine it. And ask, any, you know think about any of the really great or really horrible things that have happened in your life. Both of them, no matter what they were, whether they were amazing things or whether they were tragic things, the most powerful moments in our life we did not see coming, and we could not have predicted.
Right.
Right? I could not have predicted the day I got sober. I could not have predicted the day I read about a famous chef dying, and making the decision in that moment that it was time for me to leave kitchens, right? And making that decision that it was time for me to I've been working with people, I've been coaching for a long time at that point, but it was always just kind of a side thing. It was always just
Mm.
kind of a thing I always did. But it was in that moment where I was like, this is no longer my place. This is no longer the place for me. And working with others full time is where I'm going to go. And the day before that happened, if you'd have asked me if I was ready to be done with kitchens, I'd have told you no way. No way. I love what I do. I love this environment. I love all of it. And then like that, the my focus changed, my river changed directions, the current of my life changed directions as it does, and I didn't see it coming. I didn't see my sobriety coming. I didn't see my first relationship, my first wife, my son, like all that. I did not see that coming. It came from a direction, and it came in a way that I could never have predicted.
Mm. Right. That's all right, because I think that if we knew before, um, I mean, it would be kind of like tormenting to know beforehand that certain pivotal moments are going to happen in our life, and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't want that. Just like for me having a baby, I thought that it was going to put a big pause button. It was like a big pause button in my life. I would have never thought that it was going to be the biggest catalyst of my life, and going from not wanting to be a mother at all to like, thank you, Hermes, for all the medicine that you brought in my life and all the energy that you are helping me find. I just love that so much. And I want to remind those that are watching, that, um, and I remind that myself when I see you speaking, that what you're saying comes from years of what you call darkness that have been transformed and alchemized. I actually
Right.
like the name of your group, which is Breath Alchemy. Would you like to jump and talk about that? Like, when did breath work enter your life?
Oh
How?
my goodness. Okay, so breathwork showed up a few years ago, and once again, this is another great example. Uh, I did not see this one coming. My background is culinary, right? I'm a chef, which means I am a pragmatist, right? I am not, despite despite the uh, the people I end up in front of, I am not a super woo woo spiritual character. Like I'm not. That's not my story. And and I'm not real far out there. And I love people who are, but that's just not my story. I'm a pragmatist. Like I said, I'm a chef. Do we have the steak or not? Yeah, it's yes or no. It's I the question is, if the question is can you feel it, I don't know what you're talking about. Does it work? Does it work? As all I'm concerned with is, does it work or does it not work? And so I was at a business retreat. I was at a marketing and sales retreat trying to build my coaching business. And one of the coaches there said that he was going to run a breathwork session in the morning. And I'm like, breathwork, I don't know what that is. And one of my buddies who was there said, hey, will you come with me in the morning and do this breathwork thing with me? And I go, what's breathwork? What is that? What are you getting at? And and he goes, well, we're all gonna lie on the ground, and this guy is gonna tell us how to breathe, and we're gonna breathe really hard, and and something's gonna happen. I'm like, okay. So lie down on the ground, on the floor, in a conference hotel, conference room in San Diego with a bunch of hippies and breathe heavily. No, no, no. How about no? How about no? How about I'm not interested in that at all? Like that is not what. Uh, and and he talked me into. He promised he'd buy me breakfast afterwards. I'm like, okay, all right, all right, all right. And so I'll go. And if I'm gonna do something, if I'm gonna show up, I'm not the guy who's like gonna roll my eyes and not participate. Like okay, like like I'm here. You got me out of bed at 6 in the morning. Do something cool, right? Let's see it. And so we laid down, and he took us through a breath practice, and I had an extraordinary experience. I had an extraordinary experience, and coming out of it, I got very high. I got very altered state of consciousness, right? And so I went up to this guy afterwards, and I go, so, like the addict in me was just on fire at that point. I mean, so like how often could a guy do something like that? Right? Like what? Because now I'm looking to get more, right? Now I want more, and I'm like, so how often could you do something like that? How often could you do that reasonably? And this guy looks me dead in the eye and goes, you can't breathe too much, dude. And and so now I'm fascinated, right? Because it's been 20 years since I've been in an altered state of consciousness like that. And I didn't take anything, I didn't do anything, I just breathed, and I got crazy altered, I got high as hell. And it was very attractive to me. I felt very clear the rest of the day, I felt very focused, I was kind of energized and on point, and 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 I would find out later that I spent the rest of the day completely in flow, like completely in a peak state, a peak performance state, because of that practice. And so I started jumping into every breathwork thing that I could think of. I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts. I'm into every breathwork thing that I can think of, and I ended up. And once again, the good addict in me, comes back out and goes, "All right, I'm all done buying this. I'm going to start selling it." Right. And so I ended up going back to that guy, Kai Van Bodie, my original instructor. I went back to that guy and said, "I want you to teach me how to facilitate this. Like, this has been like one of the most transformative things in my life. I need to be able to facilitate this, and I want to give this away." And so we spent a year in a giant pile of money, and he took me all the way through his practice, which is breath alchemy. This is, I didn't make this up. This is, breath alchemy. This is his modality, and he's a qigong master in his own right. He's been teaching breath work in China for a very, very long time. He is an absolute master, and I consider myself very fortunate to have who have found him and had him as a mentor, and gotten a breathwork certification underneath him, and it means a lot to me. And so I folded it directly in, and it worked really well with my coaching. Right, it worked really, really well with my coaching. Only now I have this tool that I can leverage flow state. I can leverage uh, a state of consciousness that now, what would normally have taken us, kind of weeks to get to, we can now cut the timeline on. We can take that quantum leap, and I can get people into very, very powerful peak states and flow states, and we can start doing the work from there. And it's been extraordinary.
It has been, for me, just the experience with you and hearing all this, makes a lot of sense. I also am like you, that I like facts, and I have a background where I studied physics in college. So I'm not the person that you tell me like, oh, believe in this, and I just believe in it. And that is why my husband says I am an evidential medium, because I need evidence. I need it.
Mm.
I need, you know, I'm not the person that just tells you whatever, and I need it. I need to be the one understanding that what I'm saying actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, before going into how that changed my life, the second session with you, not like the 30th, the second session with you changed my life completely. I actually want to ask you if you can talk about when you have these sessions now, and how people can find you, so that people can start like looking you up and joining you.
You can find me on Facebook, uh, Dave Gieselman. Um, you can, uh, I will put links to, I do 2 breathwork sessions per week in on Zoom for free, and it's real deal free. I'll put them in the chat, and you're welcome to share them, and share them with everybody you like. And
I put them in the description of the video.
yeah, and so both of these sessions are free. Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific, this evening. So there's still time to register for this. So if you're watching this and you're interested in doing this, Thursday at 7 p.m. is women only. So it is a women's only breathwork session. The energy in that session is insane. It's so powerful. It's so good. And then Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific is open to everyone. And just a quick idea of what these sessions look like. It's about 50 minutes of focused intentional breathing. There's 3 work rounds, and so we're doing focused intentional breathing for about 11 solid minutes of each round. We're doing 3 different rounds. There's some breath holds, and there's different breath techniques that we use. The entire purpose of this particular session is to get you into a state of transient hypofrontality. Transient meaning it doesn't last real long. Hypo meaning less than. Frontality referring to the prefrontal cortex. We are very briefly shutting down, down regulating your prefrontal cortex. We are entering flow state. And flow state is an altered state of consciousness where sort of your sense of self drops away. You enter into a sort of a timeless, selfless, things feel, the breath is going to start to feel effortless, and there's a deep richness about this state. This is called flow state. And this is what surfers find when they surf. This is what free solo climbers and skydivers and adventure sport athletes all find. And so we sit on the sidelines and we go, oh, they're chasing adrenaline. They're not. They're chasing this state. They're chasing a state where it gets very quiet in there. All of their energy is on what they're doing, and their mind opens up into different places that it's ever allowed to go. Which is why people in grief, people with mediumship gifts, they get opened up, and your heart gets opened up, your psyche gets opened up, and your mind gets opened up to these new experiences and to new sources of energy, new sources of information that maybe perhaps they were closed to. And so people who already have a sensitivity find themselves really being able to open and connect and to cross that barrier, and connect with spirit.
Thank you so much for that. And I actually wanted to ask those that are watching here today, if you want to ask Dave any question, this is the time. This is your moment. And until I find questions here, I'm just going to keep on asking him questions. So these breathwork sessions have changed my life because they allowed me to, first of all, realize that the spirit world is real, even if we cannot see it. Have my strongest spiritual experience while totally sober, not the moment of breath work, because this is another thing. You enter that state and you stay in that state, where there are these possibilities of experiencing whatever you're meant to experience also afterwards. That's what happened to me, right? The night after breath work. I mean, the same night of breath work, like 2 hours afterwards. And that experience changed me forever, because once I know that the spirit world is real, so my doubt as to whether or not I'm giving false hope has been removed. Now it's time to build confidence and embrace, the process for what it is, and meeting myself where I was at. So this is how breathwork changed me forever. And I feel like there are so many other things that happened, and that still happen now that I started again, even if I should be more consistent. But at nighttime here at 10 p.m. here, sometimes I'm just like with the baby, I'm like, I can't. But I try to push myself and do it anyways. Because I feel like there are things that happen at a cellular level. And I invited many mothers like last year and 2 years ago to participate and see, their experience. And I see that there is a lot of release that happen, a lot of water that comes out in the form of tears and stuff, that I find, it's as if it creates space inside of the person for something else. And also people are shocked of what they experience, because for me it was unexpected. I was like, breathwork, what is this? But Anthony Maraca suggested it, so let me just try it, because I trust him. I trusted him, so I was like, let me just try it.
And Anthony's a good friend. I've known him a long time. So
yeah. Let me see if there are questions here. Okay, for now I don't see any questions, so I'm just going to continue. I'm going to jump into something else that you said that really stuck with me. You say stuck with me? Yeah.
Yep.
during that phone call that, I just treasure so much, because I just treasure your time so much. And everything that you learn, I know that it's learned from experience. You don't just say it just to say it. I know that you say it with the intention to help, and because you're channeling in your own way, you're a medium in your own way. You said, I don't want to misquote you, so I'm just gonna, I have the concept in my mind. You said, in order to be, I was about to be a father, or I was a father, and who do I need it to be in order to deserve to be a father? Did you say something like that? Who do I
Yeah,
need to be in order to be that?
right, right. To my, so this goes back to our first conversation, right? About serving other people and finding myself in service to others, right? And the question was, is who do I need to become in order to be the best father that I can be, to deserve, right? To deserve, and not in a judgmental way, but to earn the right to to deserve being charged with my son's raising, right? The universe trusted me with this, so who do I need to come to honor that trust? I guess that's a better way to put it, rather than deserve. But who do I need to become in order to honor that trust? Who did I need to become in my marriage, in my first marriage? Who do I, to earn the trust that the universe put in me with this woman's heart? Who did I need to become in early sobriety to honor the trust that the universe put in me to, like, bring me out of homelessness and out of despair? Like, I really felt that I needed to not pay it back. The universe doesn't play payback games, but what it was really important to me to honor the trust and the faith and the energy that was given to me, freely. And so looking at who do I need to become has always been, and now as a business owner and as a public speaker and as a public figure, who do I need to become to be the most powerful, resonant version of me, the version of me that is in the absolute most integrity, the version of me that is creating the most powerful shifts that I can for the people that I can reach. And who do I need to become so that people feel safe around me, so that my boundaries are clear, so that my energy is clean, because I can only work on me. And the more that I grow, right, and the more that I grow in humility and in service, like, this is the baseline for everything. My job is humility and responsibility. There are things that I want in my life. There are places that I want to go. There are things that I want to achieve, and they will not be achieved by taking them. They will be achieved through humility and through responsibility. They will be achieved through service to others. And when we are in service to others, when we are in selfless service to others, we are in flow. We are in the divine flow. We are in the flow of divine compensation. We get paid for what we do. We get compensated monetarily, socially, energetically for what we do. And if the life that I want is a big life, I need to become the person who can hold a big life, right? If I stress out easily, then I can't hold a big life. If I get distracted easily, I can't hold a big life. A big life has a lot of moving parts, right? If my morals or my ethics are easily swayed, I can't hold a big life. I'll go in search of the fast dollar, the fast win. So who do I need to become who can hold the life that I want for myself? And being willing to step into the work that's going to require, and understanding that the work that's going to require is joyful work,
Right.
right? it's service. It's service. It is giving of myself, and it is giving of myself powerfully. And you know, and it doesn't always feel like it's fair, right? It doesn't always feel like it's fair. I feel like I give so much, I give so much, and every single time I feel that way, I'm going. I need to stop and ask myself: is it a transaction? Am I giving because of what I want, or am I giving because I'm supposed to give? Because that's my job to give. And if we give transactionally, it's not actually giving, right? If we give, if I, you know, if now I expect, then it wasn't a gift, it was a transaction. And that's fine because we do perform transactions in our life, right? I go shopping and I hand somebody $100 bill, you know, and I take groceries home, and that's a transaction. But the money that came to me did not come to me through transaction. It came to me through service. It came to me uh, through taking the next appropriate steps, and then the universe funded my bank account. Right, like the the law of divine compensation. Energy flowed this way, and then energy flowed this way. Money is energy. Service is energy. All of these things are energy, and when we participate in the circulation of energy, energy returns to us.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, I can definitely tell that you are, um, integrity is, a real, mm, value for you, virtue for you. I remember we had a discussion, not a discussion, a conversation last year when I was doing a course on entrepreneurship, and I asked you something, and I was telling you like, oh, because people, they should be afraid of what they're missing out. I don't remember, but I was talking about fear, and you were
Mm-hmm.
like, mm-mm, I'm not working with people because they are afraid of something. I'm working with people because they want it. And that also made me reflect. Every single thing that you say, I know that there is a lot of reflection behind it. There is a lot of contemplation. There are a lot of hours that you spent really, thinking about that. I actually have a question here from Martina. Thank you so much for being here, Martina. She said that she was a little late to the presentation, and she's sorry if it was addressed already, but no, it wasn't. It is normal to get anxious during the breathwork session. This is the question that she has.
Yes, it is normal to get anxious during the breathwork session. So the breathwork session is fundamentally a workout for your nervous system. So one of the breaths that we do, the breath techniques that we do, opens up your parasympathetic, switches your body into your parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, right? And it fuels that part of you. Then we switch and we very intentionally drive our nervous system into a state of fight or flight. We intentionally drive ourselves into survival mode, right? We stimulate our adrenals. We intentionally push that level in ourselves, and when we do that, what happens? And then we bring it back down. And when we do that, what we are doing is we are teaching our nervous system that it can trust us. The benefit of that is the next time that you are in an anxious state, the next time that you are in an activated anxious state, your nervous system knows that it can trust you, and you have answers, and then you can breathe, and you can shift back, shift out of that anxious state, shift out of that contracted state, right? This is the biggest game that we play here, and the name of the game is first get calm and then get clear. When you are anxious, when you are nervous, when you are scared, when you are stressed, you are in a stress response. And when you are in a stress response, when you're in your sympathetic nervous system, when you're in fight or flight, uh, you lose access to most of your higher level cognition. You lose access to your prefrontal cortex. You lose access to your frontal lobe. You lose access to these important higher level thinking parts of your brain. Your amygdala, which is a tiny little piece all the way in the center of your brain, this is your lizard brain, is running the show. And there's a reason for that, right? Because like your sex drive shuts down, your drive to feed shuts down, like all kinds of stuff shuts down when you're in a stress response. There's a reason for that. If you were walking through the woods and a wolf popped up, right? And it is now your time to run away from the wolf, to get away from the wolf. In our earliest days, our DNA level, and if a wolf pops up and it is your job now to run away from a wolf and get away from that wolf as fast as you can, it does not serve you to be thinking things deeply, to be having all these like abstract, complex thoughts. It doesn't serve you to have to pee. It doesn't serve you to be horny. It doesn't serve you to be hungry. It doesn't serve you to feel like you need to make a baby right now. Like the whole point is to strip everything down to basic functions, fuel the muscles, and get the hell out of danger. Right? And so when you are in an activated state, when you are in your sympathetic nervous system, when you are in fight or flight, you don't have access to your neocortex. You don't have access to these things. And so your little lizard brain is making 20,000-year-old decisions in a modern world that has no business driving the bus in, right? So what we can do is when we train our nervous system that it can trust us, and we train ourselves how to manage our own nervous systems, then when we go into a stress response, and there's nothing wrong with a stress response, you're just not supposed to live in it. You're just not supposed to live in that place. And so when we very intentionally access that stress response and then back ourselves out of it, we are teaching ourselves and we are teaching our body that it is safe to be in that stress response, but we will also take responsibility for taking ourselves out of it so that we can open up our minds, gain access to higher levels of cognition. If you've ever been stressed out, super stressed, and then try to solve the problem, what do? You sit there and think and think and think, and you're trying to solve the Rubik's Cube from inside the Rubik's Cube, and you can't, right? Once you get calm, then you get access to all these other parts of your brain. Then you can begin solving the problem, but you will never solve the problem from inside your stress response. If it's ever felt like one foot was stuck to the ground, like I'm stuck, I'm just turning in circles, I don't know where to go, I keep trying to solve the problem and everything I do makes it worse. No, stop. Please stop. Regulate your nervous system, then reapproach the problem. So the answer, that was the long answer, but the answer is yes. It is natural to get a sense of anxiety during certain parts of the breath work, and to understand that it's the point, right? If you can breathe through the anxiety of being in that heightened state, which means, because most of us, we get into an anxious state and we still, I need to do something. I need to change this. I need to fix this. I need to do whatever. If you can be in an anxious state without being fearful and go, no, I got this. Like, this is where I am right now. I'm okay. My body is safe. I'm all right. And I'm in an anxious state and it's only going to last for so long. And I know how to get myself out of this. Then you're willing to go with the exercise. You're willing to go with the process and understand that we're working out the nervous system.
Thank you so much for this answer. And I hope that, Martina, clarified a little bit for you. I have a few more questions that I want to ask you, and I want to ask everybody here, if you have any questions, please write them in the comments. I am just asking you as many questions as I have in my mind, Dave, because I'm just going to rewatch this, and just with more calm and probably jot down notes. So I wanted to ask you something that has to do with identity. I have sometimes, and you use a word which I never use, which is strip. Just like strip or get rid of the layers that you built and that you felt comfortable in for a long time. And it feels like it could be painful because like I want to talk about two things in one. First of all, you said that you were an addict, and I realized the difference between saying I am something and I have an addiction, for example, like identifying with the word or having something that you can decide not to have anymore is something that I am using for myself and also, when speaking to others. And I wanted to ask you about that, and I wanted to ask you about identity and how to I don't know if the process can be made less painful of getting rid of the identities that we build up for ourselves, because for me it has been pretty painful, and I believe for all of us it kind of is. But if you can speak about those two things, thank you so much.
For sure. So as far as addiction goes, when I'm speaking to a larger audience, I say that I'm an addict, uh, and what I mean, and the truth is my truth is I am a recovered alcoholic. Is my truth. That is my idea. I have alcoholism. Okay, which means I have the genetic predisposition toward alcoholism, and at some point in my life, that gene upregulated. It went live on me, and I had a awful problem with drugs and alcohol. Alcoholism doesn't necessarily just mean alcohol, but there's a difference between alcoholism and addiction that we don't need to get into right now. Both of them are hugely destructive, and they look very similar. And if you find yourself in it, then identifying whether you're an alcoholic or have an addiction is really important. Uh, but for the sake of my own identity, I am a recovered alcoholic, which means I will always have alcoholism, and that is the truth. That is the medical truth, right? Like if you have a hepatitis C and you take the interferon treatment or you take any of these other treatments, you will always have the antibodies for hepatitis C. They will never leave your system. They will drop down to undetectable levels, but you will always have them. I will always have the genetic markers for alcoholism. I have, however, fully recovered from alcoholism, and those and the active practices, the active parts of my alcoholism are not there. Like I don't suffer from it, right? I don't. Yes, I still have the genetic markers from it, but none of the behaviors associated with nothing, none of the pathology associated with alcoholism anymore. And so that's what I mean when I talk about when I speak to a broader audience, I just say I'm an addict because people are like, or I have an addiction, I had addiction, and people are like, oh, okay, I understand. He did a bunch of drugs. The truth is, I was a homeless guy. I was addicted to alcohol. I was addicted to cocaine. It was a really really dreadful part of my life, and I'm grateful it's gone. My last drink was July 25th, 1999, and so I've been sober a really long time. As far as my own identity goes in other ways and how to strip away parts of our identity, um, most of us uh, use narrative to identify ourselves, right? My parents are this, and so we say I am, right? And anything that you say I am is true. Anything that you say I am about you, your mind will make true. The subconscious does not deal in negatives. The brain does not deal in negatives. And here's the example I'm going to give you, right? Don't think of an elephant, right? Like you can't not think of an elephant, right? If I say don't think of an elephant, you're gonna think of an elephant, right? And the brain and the subconscious work very very much that way, right? So the subconscious doesn't deal in positive or negative. Everything is real. Everything is right now. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be logical. It doesn't need to be true. It doesn't need to be anything. And anytime you say I am and you attach an I, to a statement, your brain will figure out then how to make that true, right? So when we tell ourselves, I am, I am so terrible because, or I am unworthy of love, or I am not good enough because, the brain hears it and then makes it true for us, right? And then it just supports, right? The brain is like Google, right? If we ask Google, you know, how did how did man fly to the moon? Google will tell you how man flew to the moon. If we ask Google, why am I such a piece of shit? Google will tell us why I'm such a piece of shit, right? And it will give you the same amount of answers, and um, uh, it is unemotional about it. Like, the brain is unemotional about it. Like, and if you ask the brain why you're such a piece of shit, the brain will come up with a million reasons about why you are undeserving of love, why you are undeserving of partnership, why you're undeserving of whatever this thing is that you want for yourself. When you say I am worthy, you say I am worthy of love. I am, whatever it is that you want to be, right? Your brain will find a way to make that true, right? And like I said, it doesn't even need to make sense. You'd say I am a mother, right? And the your brain will send energy out into the universe, and it will find you like a baby duck. Like I said, like the world shows up for us in ways that we could never understand, we could never see coming. But when we attach these I messages, like, we now become that thing. And so when I look at my own identity, and I look at the parts of me that I no longer identify with, and when we are young, right? When we are young, we develop all of these coping mechanisms, right? We learn how to, be meticulous with money. We learn how to get away with stuff, or we learn how to lie, or we learn how to, keep the spotlight off of ourselves if we come from abusive households. We learn how to identify the temperature, the emotional temperature of people really quickly, right? We learn these performative achievement, because if I have perfect handwriting on my paper, I get A's in school, or I have athletic achievement, then I have a positive spotlight cast on me, and it keeps that negative, dangerous spotlight off of me, right? And so we develop these coping mechanisms, right, that keep us safe. And we develop them young, we develop them fairly, because when we are young, we need them. They keep us safe, right? And whether it's, whatever it is, right? And, many young, many of the women in here will identify with being told how pretty they are, and remaining pretty was very, very important to them. Pardon me. uh, and so remaining pretty was very important to them. A lot of young women in here were told that they had such beautiful handwriting, right? And if you were one of those young women who was told you had such beautiful handwriting, I would like to ask you how many times you had written out like a 2-page thing, and got near the end and messed up your handwriting, and threw it away and started over, right? Because and so what is that? That is perfectionism.
Mm.
That is perfection. And then it goes straight into, what if I don't do it right? If I don't do it right, it is dangerous for me. And then we take that coping mechanism and we bring it into our adult lives. We needed it when we were young, right? And we bring it into our adult lives, and now we are terrified of not doing it right. It's like the great fear. What if I don't do it right? Right? What if I'm wrong? What if I don't do it right? And it feels like the stakes are very high. Right? It feels like the stakes are very high. Excuse me.
That is me, by the way. I suffered of perfectionism to the point that I was not showing up.
Right. Because if I suffer from perfectionism and I do it wrong, like, it feels physically dangerous. My body doesn't feel safe, right? And so it's not just like, it's not about platitudes. It's not about thinking your way out of the problem, because you can't, right? Because when you're in that activated state, when you're in that fearful state, you can't just say, just don't think like that. You can't. Right? And so, in as a part of the breathwork, one of the things we do is we look at these parts of ourselves, and we go, what are these things that are no longer serving you, right? And we can decide in that state of flow, in that heightened now heightened state, we can decide, I no longer want this in my life, right? This is no longer who I am. It is no longer serving me. We ask, where do you turn down your own light, right? Where do you dim your own shine for the sake of others so that somebody else can be comfortable, right? And where do we do this? And and when we do this, all of our ideas about who we are start to come up, right? Ideas about who we are, what we're capable of, what our lives are about, what directions we're supposed to be going. All of these things start coming into play, and now we have questions, right? And so when we look at our own identity, we can look at the subconscious and we can say that I am, and we can decide, like, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to show up. And just because I showed up like this yesterday doesn't mean I need to show up like this tomorrow. I get to be the decider. I get to make the changes that are important to me.
Mm.
And using the breath work, using flow, using all these other tools enables us to do this very powerfully.
Yeah, because something that I don't know if you mentioned it, I don't think you mentioned it, but when you have your breathwork sessions, it's not just breathing, you actually are physically programming our mind to think differently, to think out of the box. There is no box. So actually, I have a question here from Tara. Thank you so much, Dave, for everything that you said and how you analyzed everything. I love it. So I actually have two questions. And hi, Ariana. Thank you so much for being here. Tara asks, would you share your morning routine if you have one? I know some people drink lemon water first thing, others celery juice. I would love to hear about the morning routine that supports you best. Thank you for this talk today.
My morning routine is dreadful. And my morning routine is dreadful, and it's the one that works for me. And so I get up 6:30 every day. My alarm goes off. My alarm goes off. Okay, so I'm gonna get super transparent, right? So my alarm goes off at 6, and I turn it off, and I keep sleeping until 6:30. And every night I know that when my alarm goes off at 6, I'm gonna turn it off, and I'm gonna keep sleeping until 6:30. Why don't I just set it for 6:30? I don't know. I don't know. So I set my alarm for 6. I get up around 6:30. I meditate for half an hour every single day, and it's non-negotiable. I meditate as soon as I wake up. I get up. I put my robe on. I go sit in the front room. I put on my headphones and I meditate for 30 minutes, and it's non-negotiable. Um, I then take my dog for a walk. I have a 90-pound pit bull who has a more popular Instagram than me, and hurts my feelings. Um, but but I get up and I take my dog for a walk, and then I come back and I eat breakfast while I make coffee. And my breakfast is always like overnight oats with chia seeds in it. And so and at some point during the day, I will journal. Journaling is super important. Um, at some point during the day, and generally when I'm walking my dog, I'm listening to a podcast about something that's interesting. So I'm feeding my mind during that process. So I get up in the morning, I meditate, and the meditation is both a clearing and an opening, right? So we're clearing any cobwebs from the night before, and then we're opening to new possibilities. Um, and when I walk my dog, I listen to something that I want to absorb. I want to take in, like new tools, new knowledge, new belief. Um, and then I make breakfast and make coffee, and I sit down with my wife and we talk about the day. Between the two of us, we run four businesses, and we do it all from our living room, and from we're both work from home. We both own businesses. We both have a lot going on, and we sit down and we like, what does your day look like? What does it all look like? And so I connect with myself. I connect with information. I connect with my dog. I connect with my wife. um and this is how I start my day. As far as lemon water, celery juice, I think I usually drink water before I drink coffee. um I have a big pitcher. I always have a big pitcher of water in my fridge, and I always drink water before I drink coffee. But as far as water with lemon in it or celery juice or whatever, I will say this: do what makes you feel great. Do what makes you feel great. I've done water with lemon. I've done celery juice. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've done intermittent fasting. And right now, this is my routine is what makes me feel great, makes me feel ready for work, makes me feel ready to do what I do each day. There was a time in my life when I was up at 5 a.m. and I was on a Brazilian jiu-jitsu mat by 6 a.m. and I would work out. I would do Brazilian jiu-jitsu until about 7:30 every day, and then start my day, right? And at the time, that's what made me feel great. So your routine will change over time. You will get more sleep. You will get less sleep. Meditation may come and go. Prayer may come and go. Journaling may come and go. There are lots of different things. Celery juice may come and go. Green smoothies may come and go. Do what makes you feel great. And if you stop doing something and you're like, oh, I missed that, then start doing it again, right? Uh, there is no one size fits all morning routine. And I know very, very, very successful people who sleep till 10, right? Roll out of bed into like basically a kiddie pool full of coffee and then drag themselves to their office without doing any sort of meditation, without doing any sort of spiritual work, without doing any sort of anything. And they're very successful and they're very healthy and they're very happy, and that's how they start their day. So I would say do whatever makes you feel great. If your morning routine includes comparison, you might want to drop the comparison.
Speechless. Thank you so much for that. I hope that answered your question, Tara. I have another question from Martina. Hi, I wanted to continue with so many questions. Maybe we can do this again, in the future.
Anytime you want. Anything for you, Sylvia.
Um, but Martina is asking, have you had people meet their loved ones in spirit during a breathwork session?
Yes. Yes. And Sylvia's been there when um because at the end of the session we kind of come back and we circle back up and we have some sharing and we'll close the container. And there are people uh who have talked about crossing the barrier during breathwork. We've had people who talked about their loved ones showed up for them during breathwork. What's very interesting is very often people will talk about having now, because this is all on Zoom and these are people all over the world. We usually have usually three different continents, kind of represented, and people from all over the world will talk about experiencing similar visual experiences during certain parts. People will all say they kind of saw the same colors and the same geometric patterns and the same different stuff. And people go, yeah, I saw blue triangles too, or I saw a blue pyramid too, or I saw and we often have people, particularly particularly people who are grieving and who are seeking connection with loved ones. Very often we will have people say that they did feel a sense of connection, or that a loved one showed up for them during the process.
Yeah. And for me, it was a few hours later. So if it doesn't happen in that moment, it can definitely happen afterwards.
Right.
Again, I said at the beginning, maybe Martina was not here, but breath work with Dave really, really was the thing that I was waiting for, to know that there is definitely an afterlife. I lived it. Um, so I experienced it. That's why now I know. Um, all right. Well, I want to, be mindful of everybody's time, and just thank you so much for everything that you share with us. I am going to upload this interview on YouTube. I should have recorded it from Zoom. Next time I'll do it because now it's on. I have to download it from Facebook. I hope that the quality is good enough, and then I'm going to upload it on YouTube, and I'm going to put everything. Where you can find Dave, his profile, his pages, his Facebook groups and everything in the description, so that you can start working with him, because it's definitely going to change your life for sure in some way. I don't know what way, but I know that if you were here today, you definitely have to go to the breath work session tonight if you have time, if you can make it. And yeah, I actually wanted to end with I have one last thing that I wanted to ask, but I wanted to open it to you, Dave, and ask you if you have anything specific that is coming to mind that you want to share with us before I ask you that.
No, not at all. I want to be open to you, and I want to be available for anything that you want to ask.
So, because for me and for everybody here, I believe that breath work is challenging, but there is this sentence that I discovered recently that I actually want to ask your opinion on, and it says, "We challenge ourselves so that life doesn't challenge us." What do you think about it?
I think that lots of things are challenging. One of the things we talk about before we start the breath work is that your resistance will show up, right? It will, right? If you are used to exercising, if you're a runner or whatever, and it doesn't matter how experienced of a runner you are, the first mile of any run is sucks. It's terrible. The first round of any soul cycle or Peloton class is difficult. The first few asanas of any yoga practice are difficult. Changing gears, starting something new, shifting tasks, shifting lifestyles, anything, like, things are challenging. Things are difficult. Uh, More often than not, what happens is because the body is lazy, right? It doesn't want to expend any more energy. Look, I've gotten this far. We're expending this much energy a day. I don't want to expend more energy a day. The emotions are lazy. They don't want to expend any more energy. The mind is lazy. It doesn't want to expend any more bandwidth. So know that your mind, your emotions, your body will all resist change. And that's that thing that you call difficult, right? That is that thing that we call difficult. This is more challenging than I wanted it to be, right? And so I give up. Uh, and so when we stop we stop allowing something that is challenging, something that is hard, to be a barrier for whether or not we're going to keep going, right? When something is hard, right, that is not a signal to me that I might want to slow down, right? There's not a signal to me that it's time to give up. It's a signal to me that I'm in the middle of change, right? That I'm now in exertion. I am now making a legitimate change. I you know Somebody asked Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, one time. They were asking about his workout, and they asked him, like, how many sit-ups he does, and he said, I don't know. They go, what do you mean you don't know? Do you not count? Do you not? He goes, no, I don't start counting until it hurts. Like, I don't even start counting until they're painful, right? Which means that he doesn't even consider it work until his resistance kicks in, until it is painful, right? Until, like, until his body is attempting to get him to stop. And so, understanding that your relationship with the difficult can change. And one of the things we do in breath work is, as we talk about this, like, I invite you, breathe through it. Breathe through the resistance. Breathe through the challenge. You got this. And the more things that we are willing to breathe through, the more things that we think we can breathe through. right? The more things, the more time that we're doing our morning run, and we decide to go an extra mile, but we're tired and we're sore and we're fatigued, and we go, yeah, but I'm just gonna breathe through that and I'm gonna do an extra mile. The next time we run, we know we can go that extra mile,
Mm.
right? And so everything in life, yes, life is challenging, and I think it's true. We do challenging things because life is challenging, right? And leaning into a challenge rather than away from it is really important, because if we continually lean away from the challenge, then all of a sudden we're leaning away from everything, because everything becomes challenging.
Mm. Mm-mm. Wow. Yes. Thank you so much. So tonight you have the breathwork session in about 3 hours at 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific
Yes.
time. Okay, so I'm gonna share the link again for those that want to participate in actually in the course that I'm starting February 9th. People that are coming to the course are also going to come to the breathwork. It's not mandatory, but highly recommended for all of us to be together in the same container. Because again, I just include everything that truly helped me in my life and in my journey. So I wanted to thank you, Dave, for your time, for your wisdom, for your experience, for everything that you shared with us today. And I cannot wait to do this again and to see you later tonight.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. It's an
Thank you.
honor to be here. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you, and thanks for all that have watched. Um, Thank you so much. Actually, Dave, can you stay here a little longer with me once we finish the live? Because I have something that